Good evening. This is Maestro Cortello with a Company of Heroes 2 cast. Today we have a 1v1 on Kholodny Ferma. Our first player on the left side is CcArtS, and on the other side, playing as the Ostheer. So CcArtS was playing as the Soviet Union, but on this side we have Triumph as the Ostheer, of course. So I kind of screwed that up, but that's okay, we're all good. So this is Kholodny Ferma. Out of our starting moves from both players, CcArtS has chosen to not build his first production building yet. Instead, he's already putting his engineers on the field. He's going to get his first territory point capture off before Triumph will. And of course, he's also getting units out on the field faster. He already has conscripts out on the field. He already has a second one building. Meanwhile, it looks like on the other side, Triumph is only just now getting his first Grenadier. Triumph is actually even not choosing. He's actually now not capturing any territory points yet. He actually abandoned the capture on the closest territory point to his base so that he can actually engage CcArtS, engage his conscripts. Actually, these are CcArtS combat engineers with his pioneers, so he could actually stall out the munitions capture. So one of the things that's a little bit different about this game compared to both Company of Heroes and Dawn of War 2 is that because you have these now capture area circles, you can actually stall out a capture by putting a unit in the circle. So before, in Company of Heroes, you pretty much just had to threaten an infantry unit enough to make it run away or retreat. And in Dawn of War 2, you could do that, or you could use some kind of disruption to pull it off the point. Here, you can actually delay a capture just by putting a unit in the point. Now, Triumph was winning that little battle here against the engineers for as long as the engineers were behind this tree, since the tree was yellow cover, whereas this tractor that the pioneers were standing behind was actually green cover, so they had better cover, they were taking less damage, and ultimately just not getting hit as much. Now, CcArtS is definitely coming on the way better end of map control. This, in part, has to do with the fact that he got units out earlier, he started capturing earlier, he still hasn't built his production building, he still hasn't built his first production building. And then Triumph is going for that play where he's actually trying to stall out CcArtS captures instead of just focusing on capturing his own. In fact, he's only captured one standard territory point. He also does have this MG, and an MGs can actually reasonably capture in this game without sacrificing a lot of their tactical value. Again, unlike Company of Heroes and Dawn of War 2. That being said, an MG is still going to be a relatively static unit, so you still get less offensive map control, less ability to take map, although you do get more ability to hold map out of an MG. At least hold points you already have that are by an MG. So we have another cover-to-cover, naked gun-style fight between the Grenadiers and the conscripts. It looks like the Grenadiers are doing pretty well, but there goes a Molotov, and the Grenadiers are slightly in there, and that's also forcing them out of cover. Meanwhile, over here, we still have combat engineers in this building, basically denying this munitions point. To Triumph. That being said, Triumph, he now has a mortar team out. So let's actually take a look at Triumph's build. He's got two Grenadiers, the starting Pioneer, an MG, and the mortar team. So he has that mortar team, I think in part maybe just as anti-garrison, since CcArtS was basically denying this munitions point a lot on the strength of the combat engineers in the garrison. Garrisons are very, very powerful in this game. The actual garrison defense is better than Company of Heroes, while anti-garrison answers tend to be worse than Dawn of War 2.
The enemy is attempting to steal our sector.
And the mortar team, aside from just anti-garrison, can just be good as a way of punishing bad micro, punishing static units. Can be good for a unit that's capturing when your opponent's not just paying attention. It's also just a good way to tax your opponent's micro because it requires them to move their units around a little bit more, or they will be paying for it a little bit more. Looks like over here, Triumph still has his MG42 machine gun. Triumph has like he really doesn't have much map control at all. CcArtS has overwhelming map control. He's basically captured everything on the map, and to be honest, not only it's not even like the map was taken from Triumph. Triumph just never really captured it in the first place. Mainly just this one territory point. So CcArts, probably the more experienced Relic RTS player. I actually remember his name a while back. There definitely were a few casts by Harlequin of him playing Dawn of War 2. So he might just be the more experienced Relic RTS player. He's playing a way better map control game. He has nearly the entire map. He has both fuel points. He has like almost every strategic point on the map. It's ridiculous, and this is a fairly long game, and I actually don't even understand how the game can go this long with the map control this much in CcArts' favor. I mean, I don't know about Company of Heroes, but this is like the kind of thing where in Dawn of War 2, you'd be pretty close to already being sunk at this point, letting your opponent have this much map for this long. We're 6 minutes into the game, and Triumph has almost never really had any map control whatsoever. Now, at least the good thing for Triumph is that for his purposes, in this game, your manpower income is actually not affected by map control. It's only affected by your upkeep, how many units you already have on the field. So at the very least, he can at least put out more Grenadiers, and he might even be saving a few... he might even be saving some manpower on the use of his MG. It looks like his MG use has been alright. And of course an MG is something that is going to prevent you from taking as much manpower bleed. Grenadiers, of course, if they're fighting, even if they're in cover, they will inevitably be taking damage, even while they're dealing damage. Now, I mean, this does not look good at all for Triumph. One of the things that Triumph could do, of course, is that I'm looking at his doctrines. One of the doctrines that he has is the Assault Support Doctrine. This is generally known as the best German doctrine there is right now, for two main reasons. First is the Opel Blitztruck, which allows you to get more resources from territory points, whether it's fuel points, standard territory points, or munitions points. It also gives you access to the Strafing Run, which is... and he picked that doctrine. And I mean, I actually wonder if that's the only way he could stay in this game. And already he's putting his first Opel truck out so that he can get more resources from his standard territory point. Down here, looks like we have some Pioneers. Unfortunately, they're probably not going to win against these conscripts. But yeah, so this doctrine, it also has this Strafing Run, which is currently by far the best off-map ability in the game. It suppresses units pretty much around the entire map, and it can even suppress and kill units in retreat pretty effectively, so it's extremely, extremely powerful. Something that will probably be toned down in the future because it's quite ridiculous at the moment. And we might see that a bit as far as putting Triumph back in this game, because I can't even believe how he could stay in this. He's had at least good positioning on his MG. His MG, it feels like it's been on the field forever, and it's constantly suppressing things, just keeping it far back. And already, CcArts has actually discovered this Opel Blitztruck, and he's chasing after it. Now that at least means that discovering this Opel Blitztruck early is a really, really good thing for CcArts, because it means he knows that he has this doctrine. It means he knows he can expect strafing runs, and he can actually prepare a counter for that. The main counter, or practically the only counter, is to get a half-track with a quad 50 cal upgrade. And specifically, it's good to see that early on, before CcArts has committed to a building and a conscript squad went down to some flames and an MG in retreat. One thing Triumph has been doing well is definitely the use of this MG. But if we look at CcArts, he has actually, not only has he not committed to a vehicle production building, he hasn't even committed to an infantry production building. So he literally is working entirely with conscripts and combat engineers. Now, eventually he will, at the very least, need to get out I would say at the very least he would need to get out some kind of infantry production building. At this point in the game, I would say the support weapon camp might be better, because he will eventually need some kind of anti-tank, probably. And in addition to that, the special rifle command is mostly, not entirely, but mostly more of an early game play with those scout cars. Of course, it does also have those snipers, which probably are not just an early game play. Those would probably scale well into the late game, but the anti-tank available from that field gun is probably going to be more necessary in the grand scheme of things with just how he's choosing to play. And also, because I'd say it's probably more likely that CcArt is going to go for the tank battalion command so that he can get access to that half track, so that he will have a counter to the strafing runs when they inevitably come out. Now, one of the other interesting things that CcArts is doing, he has massive map control, and he's actually floating a massive amount of resources. He can put down, it looks like he's finally putting down that support weapon camp. He can immediately put down whatever he wants his next production building to be. And then after putting down that next production building, he will probably have produced enough resources from now to put out a vehicle as soon as his vehicle production building is completed as well. And it's been a map control advantage for CcArts for the whole game. He just seems to be better at playing a map control game. It actually looks like Triumph is finally pushing back and finally taking some map for himself. Now, one of the things that may not be working out for CcArts is the fact that he had such massive map control, and frankly, he probably didn't really capitalize on it. He had massive map control. He had the entire map. He didn't use that opportunity to actually tech. And there was one point where he had something like 900 power and almost, I mean, not 900 power, 900 manpower and almost 300 fuel. And the map control is actually roughly even and actually starting to go in favor of Triumph. So CcArts had that massive map control, and I was wondering how Triumph was possibly going to stay in this game, and I think in part of it kind of has to do with CcArts again not capitalizing, not choosing to tech. He finally has teched, and he actually has the mechanized armor camp. Now, I'd say one of the benefits of CcArts actually getting that massive map control, as well as maybe even saving some of those resources, is actually the fact that he may even decide to put down the tank battalion command and the mechanized armor camp. Usually, most Soviet players usually just go for one or the other. He might go for both, and that would actually give him a lot of options. That would give him the anti-armor capabilities of the Su-85 coming out of the mechanized armor camp, as well as the anti-aircraft capabilities of getting that half-track from the tank battalion command. Now, on Triumph's side, we do have some Panzer Grenadiers. He's actually got quite an army. It's pretty big. He has not reached Tier 3 yet, or at least he has not... Yeah, he has not reached Tier 3 yet. P-Grens, Panzer Grenadiers, I think they actually still do seem to beat these pioneers, and I mean these combat engineers. They might even take out those combat engineers, and actually, and they do. They take out a combat engineer with a flamethrower, so a nice little win for Triumph. He's definitely getting back into this game, and he has more map control now. And those pioneers, as good as they are as anti-infantry, or the combat engineers, as good as they are as anti-infantry, when they have been equipped with the flamethrower, they still seem to lose in a direct fight to Panzer Grenadiers, which, to be honest, they probably should. To the extent that these combat engineers are really good as anti-infantry, you still generally want them not really as direct fighters, not really as a run-up unit, not as a front-line unit. You kind of want them either flanking, or you want them... either flanking or at least having some other unit kind of divert the fire. 3 Grenadiers right here, probably going to win over the single conscript squad. I don't even know what the single conscript squad is doing. They're running around. They're not going to win this fight. Oh, they're going for the blitz truck, and that's reasonable. He's going to throw an anti-tank grenade, which does not kill it. So I don't know if it's worth it considering he did not kill it, but it's still reasonable that he wants to kill those blitz trucks, since that's, again, a big part of the thing that's going to put Triumph in the game and, frankly, even give him an opportunity to win. But we do now have a Su-76 assault gun out of CcArt. This is one of the units that comes out of the Tank Battalion Command. It is an assault gun, and it kind of has interesting, I'd say almost say somewhat limited purposes, although it's bad to put those grenadiers in the building right in front of this Su-76. The Su-76, if the artillery barrage ability is not on cooldown, it can use that right then and there, and that would be pretty good against those grenadiers. Now, this Su-76, I feel like it's a very situational purpose. I kind of like it, and yet I'm also starting to realize its limitations. It's very good for killing any light vehicles, so it can be good against the scout cars as well as the flamer half-tracks that you can often expect from German players. But it still has... Unfortunately, it is not good against any actual tank. And it died very quickly right there. Just 2 hits from that pack. Not good against any actual tank. And although the artillery barrage ability is good for long-range anti-garrison, it does not really have as much anti-infantry capabilities otherwise. Now, CcArts is still floating a lot. He's still floating massively. At this point, he may be saving just for that. I mean, I was going to say he's saving for the KV-8, but he has almost enough for 2 KV-8s. And he has some shock troops out right here. An extremely high DPS anti-infantry unit from the Soviet Union. Very, very powerful. And probably better than Panzer Grenadiers. Probably win in a straight-up fight. Of course, they don't potentially have the versatility of Panzer Grenadiers with them being able to get Panzerschecks for anti-tank if absolutely necessary. Although that is something that really hurts the anti-tank capabilities. Rather, it hurts the anti-infantry capabilities of the Panzer Grenadiers. Here we have Panzer Grenadiers. Full health Panzer Grenadiers are going to do very, very well against these nearly dead 30% health 2-man combat engineers. Combat engineers not in a good position. We might even have Flamer on retreat, Flammenwerfer, as well as the MG. MG setting up a little too late, not even setting up, and ultimately not capitalizing on that. Some potential, may even still do it. Can he get that? Yes, and he does actually take out. So a lot of losses for CcArts. And CcArts has actually... CcArts still the one with the map control. Despite having fewer units, despite... He's still... CcArts still floating massively.
The enemy is taking what we have secured. Enemy fire! We are ready for anything. A sector has been cut off.
So these flamethrower upgrades have been doing very, very well for Triumph. We've just see how they've been doing as far as killing squads. Mortar team for Triumph possibly in trouble and does in fact go down from the Molotov cocktail. And yes, CcArts actually it looks like he's choosing to steal it. Oh, he chose to steal it, but oh, that's terrible for CcArts. He chose to steal the mortar, but he lost the mortar. And he lost he lost his own mortar crew, and he lost his conscript in the process. There's an incendiary barrage. Very, very good anti-infantry off-map artillery strike. Very, very powerful. It's also particularly good when you're trying to scare away units that are supporting a vehicle. Now, luckily for CcArts, he's been floating so massively. I'm not sure why. I don't know if he's just trolling this guy, or if he just has some kind of evil plan that I don't understand yet. I certainly don't understand it. I don't know if it's an evil genius plan or if... I don't know. But anyway, we have this KV-8 heavy flamethrower tank. This is an awesome unit. It is another flamethrower weapon. You've seen how good the flamethrower weapons can be in this game, and this is probably the king of them. We also have another Su-76. I'm surprised to see him go for another Su-76. I mean, at least right now... Triumph does not actually have other vehicles, so it's not a big deal. He does not have any real serious tanks, and it works out. But I'm just surprised. Like if I were playing, if I were CcArts and I were playing the Soviet Union, I would be concerned about getting out maybe an Su-85 to deal with the possibility of an actual tank. Now this is going to be incredibly devastating. Will decrew the pack. I'm surprised it hasn't already killed the Pioneers, but it probably will kill them. No, because it's not shooting, but it still decrews the pack. And that being said, we now have a real tank. We have a Panzer IV medium tank out for Triumph. Let's take a look at Triumph's build again. I know he has more units, but he only has this one Panzer IV. But that one Panzer IV will actually do decently well against this heavy flamethrower tank. I hate saying decently well. That's actually in English, kind of a bit of an English foul. It's not good English, but oh my god, the Panzer Grenadiers gone from that KV-8 heavy flamethrower tank. Now again, this Su-76 won't be able to contribute a whole lot against the Panzer IV, probably not unless it gets some rear armor shots. But we have squads dying left and right for Triumph on the power of this KV-8. That's one of the things that's just so good about this KV-8. We do have an anti-tank grenade on the Panzer IV. Not surprising, generally not surprising to see Soviet players to get all of the upgrades for the conscripts, both the anti-tank grenades as well as the Molotov cocktails. Molotov cocktails a little bit harder to use against better players, and not as good against setup teams or weapons teams now that they have been increased to have 4 men in the recent patch. But still potentially good, still just nice to have a grenade option, particularly as anti-garrison. And we see this is the artillery barrage ability of the Su-76. It does not seem to be working out terribly well here. So far, 2 shots hit the building. 2 have missed entirely. I don't know what he targeted exactly, but that's a potentially good ability, just a good barrage ability. The best thing about it is the fact that it's free, as opposed to the divisional field gun has pretty much the same ability, but it costs 60 munitions. So that's one of the reasons it can be nice to get this Su-76. But Panzer IV does need some repairs. It is nice for Triumph that he has 3 squads of Pioneers, going to give him a lot of repair support. I think right now he's actually just missing a lot of regular infantry fire. He's lost his Panzer Grenadiers. He lost at least 1 regular Grenadier squad. Again, a lot due to that KV-8. Let's take a look. We're actually on Triumph's side right now, and Triumph has enough resources to get out a Panzer IV, but I have a feeling that he's floating resources because now he wants to get a Tiger. And there we go with that strafing run. Now it's just strafing these shock troops right here. It's an incredibly, incredibly powerful global. Probably hard to even demonstrate against, even in, I feel like in a cast or a replay, it's hard to actually fully understand just how good that strafing run is. But it's keeping this mortar squad in place, and it even ended up getting it decrewed. But that strafing run is just a ridiculously good ability. And it's like it's still going. Still going. Still going, still firing. But yeah, I think Triumph is going for the Tiger. He's floating a lot of resources. He has enough command points to get the Tiger, and he's just waiting on more fuel. Oh, and here we actually see that the KV-8 has... Oh, we have a fragmentation bomb strike. That could potentially kill a lot of the infantry around. It killed every single infantry squad around that KV-8, as well as giving it the crew shock critical, which I believe just, I don't know, does something to the crew. They just kind of get scared and stop operating the tank. But that was a nice fragmentation bomb. Now again, I'm surprised to see that CcArtS didn't really do anything about that. Like, he didn't at least retreat or try to move his units out of the way. I don't know if he was still suppressed or pinned from that strafing run. Although, if he was, that's certainly a very, very powerful combination to combine the strafing run with the fragmentation bomb. Certainly incredibly expensive, costs a lot of munitions, but if you can pull it off, that's actually going to be like... And if you can pull it off when you have that many squads bunched up, you can kill 3 squads, maybe even more. And that leaves CcArtS in a very difficult position where he needs to make his next purchases new combat engineers so that he can continue to repair his KV-8. And he's really low on actual fighting units. He's got 2 Vet 2 conscripts. He's got a shock troop squad, which is almost Vet 1. He still has his KV-8, which again is ridiculous. We've seen how ridiculous that thing can be. But it's as good as its damage output is. It's definitely not the most durable tanks, even though it's considered a heavy tank. Definitely a lot more vulnerable than things like the IS-2 or the Tiger. Now, on CcArtS' side, I wonder if he has enough resources to get a new KV-8 out. He can put out... he does not yet have the manpower to put out an Su-85. he could do that too as a way of giving himself some nice anti-tank. If he wants to get an IS-2, he's a long way off, though. And there we go with that Tiger already from Triumph. So it's really amazing because now CcArt is truly in a disadvantageous position. CcArt had such overwhelming map control early on in the game, and now he's on the back foot of things where he can't win a head-on fight. He needs to get new units out to deal with the threats that are on the field, and until he does that, he needs to stall while still trying to hold as much map as he can. And as he's trying to do that, he's still going to potentially have to deal with strafing runs. And if we take a look at CcArt's side, he did not get the tank battalion command, so he really is going to be at the mercy of those strafing runs. There's not a whole lot he's going to actually be able to do about that, since he's chosen not to get the one building that really has a vehicle that will answer that strafing run. But we do in fact have an Su-85 out for CcArt. That was probably that actually probably was the best choice that he could have made. Probably not saving for an IS-2, since the IS-2 he would be saving up for an expensive unit that I think would actually be worse than the Tiger and would lose head on to the Tiger. I don't know if this is such a good idea. He's driving up the KV-8. I mean, he's going to decrew the mortar team, but he has to worry about the Tiger. He's probably going to decrew the pack as well. So actually, I mean, I get what he's doing, but it's some risky play with both the Panzer IV and the Tiger right here, probably going to lose the KV-8. And he has his Su-85 firing. Su-85 is taking shots at the Panzer IV, and the Panzer IV is definitely going to be the more easily killed tank, but he's definitely going to lose the KV-8 in the process. He does take out the Panzer IV at least. I don't know if he's going to take out the Tiger, though. A little too much health on that Tiger. The Tiger is still exposed, though, and lacks support. So it is backing up out of there, and it actually deflected that last shot from the Su-85. That one it did not deflect. And I feel like this Su-76 is up a little too forward because I knew that's exactly what was going to happen. A Panzerfaust is used against that Su-85. Now this Su-85 is in a lot of trouble, taking both pack shots as well as Tiger shots, and it doesn't finish off the Tiger, and that's probably going to be the end of the Su-85. But we have an Su-76 barrage trying to hit that pack. Triumph is actually moving the pack forward, and he is still in a position where he will probably take out that Su-85. He's moving the pack up way too forward, actually, and he's walking it right into fire. What is he doing? He does not need to be that close to deal with the Su-85, and he's walking his units right into fire. This is a terrible play. He's going to get his pack decrewed, voluntarily walking it into fire. And he's got... Oh, my God. All right, so that was just kind of a little embarrassing on his end. He kind of just messed up there. Moving the pack forward way too much, as well as, and then there he had it set up the complete wrong way. So KV and CcArt, it sounds like he actually lost a squad to the strafing run, and I mean that strafing run is still just horrible to deal with. We actually have a second KV-8 out. I mean, this time I was wondering if he would save up for the IS-2, but I guess not. And I mean, the anti-infantry power out of having two KV-8s, that's ridiculous. That being said, I mean, I guess part of what CcArts is doing is that he's going heavy on vehicles because his infantry is really being kind of nullified by that strafing run. No, and Triumph actually only has one vehicle left. He did lose his Panzer IV. This thing is still going. As you can see, like, whenever that plane is going, you can't actually see the plane. You can only see it on the minimap. It just does that for a really long time. Here we have, this is another, is this a fragmentation bomb? Or is this, it's just another strafing run. He had another strafing run ready pretty much as soon as he was done there. And that leaves this KV-8 basically isolated. And these units are getting suppressed in retreat, which is one of the really ridiculous things about that ability, about that strafing run. We have units getting suppressed and now pinned in retreat. So they were in retreat. I think they were in retreat, or this one was, and it's still suppressed. And we have a KV-8 here, which has engine damage. I think this has to be like heavy engine damage, because this KV-8 is going slow as hell. And one of the things that strafing run did was that it pulled all of the repair units away from this KV-8. So it's just kind of leaving it in a position where it's really kind of dead in the water. And Triumph just needs to move up with an AT gun, and he's probably got it in the bag. Certainly with this Tiger, that's probably going to be a dead KV-8 right here. I mean, I guess part of what CcArtS is doing is actually trying to go for things in the base. Most of the tanks have actually moved away, and now we actually have the Tiger going back to base. But this KV-8 over here is still going to go down. Yes, it does go down. Meanwhile, this KV-8 is going for a lot of base kills against the infantry. If we look at CcArtS' side, he's lost a lot of units. Triumph himself, he actually somehow, I don't even know where his squads are. They're actually in the field, so this base rush was not a good idea, and CcArtS is actually going to lose this KV-8 as well. So Triumph relatively low on resources. What is our CcArtS? So CcArtS' resource bank is not looking too great. At this point, it might be a decent idea to get out another Su-85. Because he's really going to want some. He has a Tiger to deal with, a new Panzer IV. I believe he knows about that Panzer IV, so he should know that he's going to have to deal with that. And just one Su-85 really isn't going to be enough. And unfortunately, at this point, I think he's really beyond the point of back-teching to the Tank Battalion Command to get a half-track, a quad 50 cal half-track to deal with those strafing runs. I just think at this point, I think he's just going to have to deal with the strafing runs when they come, and hope for the best. Since I think more importantly, he's going to need something that can actually deal with all these tanks. And he just lost another conscript squad again. It was actually a Vet 3 conscript squad. So again, I don't entirely know what's going on here. Definitely, this is a strange game in many ways. Just with the overwhelming map control that CcArtS had, not capitalizing on it, floating massive resources. He had enough resources to get an IS-2 when he only had like one command point. And we have the Tiger harassing these conscripts a bit. They are going to throw an AT grenade, it looks like. Yes, the long-range throw does get a damaged engine. Now, these vehicle criticals, as you can see, they're quite a bit different from the on-command snaring that you see more often in Dawn of War 2. In part because they can be so much more pervasive. This Tiger has a damaged engine, and it has its movement speed reduced until it gets repairs. And who knows when that will be. Luckily, Triumph has a lot of repair support, but then the repair rate in this game is also pretty slow. But wow, I just realized what happened. So Triumph, he didn't just kill one of the KV-8s, he also managed to decrew the KV-8. Now, this happening, vehicles getting abandoned and decrewed, this is something I believe happens randomly. There's just a low chance that instead of killing a vehicle outright, you will get the crew to abandon it, and then you can actually steal it. Now, on the other side of things, your opponent can actually take their abandoned vehicle back if they have the right support and such. But at the same time, you can steal it. And now Triumph has a KV-8, although he's very quickly going to lose it. Just barely, I think, saves it from that last Su-85 shot. And oh my god, the pack just exploded. Well, yeah, it exploded and the crew is gone, so pack totally lost for Triumph. So he does lose a bit of anti-tank right there, and we also have... what? There's the incendiary barrage. Now what that does is that, again, that leaves the... that basically just leaves that KV-8 isolated. By forcing off all their repair units, because those repair units have to go or they will die just standing around in that fire. Now the Tiger is now chasing after this Su-85. We have a Vet 3 Su-85, and that Su-85 can just keep backing up and outrange the Tiger. That's the benefit. It looks like we just had a conscript squad wiped there, though. Let's check CcArtS. Yeah, he has no conscripts left. Look at, I mean, this... well, it's a combination of things. First of all, I think CcArtS could be managing his infantry better. There are definitely some times where I felt he lost infantry unnecessarily. This looks like one of the times right now. And then, of course, there is that strafing run, which is just absolutely ridiculous against infantry. And yeah, we see another combat engineer squad going down right there. So I don't know. I mean, early on in the game, it really looked like... it actually really looked like CcArtS was just the better player. And it's not necessarily looking that way right now. Well, we have... this is the third KV-8 from CcArtS. And I mean, they are good, but he's just lacking, period. I was gonna say something like he's lacking anti-tank power, but he's just lacking, period. He doesn't have much. He has a stolen pack. Now again, the stolen tanks, those are pretty much random, whereas stolen field guns, stolen packs, and stolen weapons, those are actually pretty consistent. Those work out pretty consistently. But this KV-8 in a pretty bad position, so putting his anti-tank support is really the right thing to do while this KV-8 still gets repairs. I think Triumph still just has straight up the bigger army. He does, and so many, especially so many more repair units. He has fewer vehicles, yet more repair units, so he's going to be better at supporting, well, the one vehicle he has right now. Triumph, we are looking at Triumph's side. He could already put out a new Panzer IV. He may be choosing not to do that anymore, since, to be honest, his Panzer IVs have not been surviving. So instead he may be choosing to save up for another Tiger, which is not completely unreasonable, given the doctrine that he has, which just gives him a lot of resource income, even off only a few points. And we have a shock troop squad now getting very close to dying for CcArtS, courtesy of this machine gun in the building, which this building is like getting destroyed a lot. And this MG is about to get wiped entirely by this KV-8. What the hell did it just get wiped from? That wasn't even the KV-8. I think what happened there, this is something that someone mentioned. It may have even been, I don't know, it was someone. But I think what happened there was the weapon was destroyed. The machine gun was destroyed, which I think just resulted in the entire squad dying. But otherwise, that was a whole MG squad getting one-shotted by something, I don't know what, some kind of cannon. And those cannons are not even supposed to be that accurate against MGs. Looks like we have a new pack coming out of Triumph. Probably at a good time. He's actually getting pushed back into his base. So he's going to move this. He's moving a supply truck because the Opel Blitz truck at that point actually got decapped. So he's not going to be getting anything out of that point. And this is actually now looking really, really bad. Oh my god, we have another incendiary barrage. This is looking really bad for Triumph. And it's also incredibly strange considering, in some ways that, to be honest, CcArts, there are definitely some ways that CcArts has not played very well in this game. It's been a crazy game in a lot of ways, and possibly not. I mean, these players are probably pretty good, probably definitely better than me. But in some ways, I feel like this maybe isn't the highest level game. It's certainly not like a Siberian Aimstrong or Cepha game. But I mean, I'm sure these players are still pretty good, but I'm just really surprised with some of the things that happened here. But CcArts is actually looking pretty dominant right now. He's scared. He's pretty much scared Triumph into his base, and I think a lot of that has to do with the Tiger not really having the range to deal with that Su-85. And then we have the stolen pack as well. So it looks like, what is Triumph going to do? He's got his Tiger, and I mean he's actually going for a little bit of a. He's got nice positioning on his Tiger, and CcArts probably can't see it because of True Sight. And he's probably going to use that strafing run to help him move in. Maybe get that pack gun decrewed a bit, and then try to get the Tiger around a point where he can actually just like kind of go to the back of, or yeah, get the Tiger to actually circle around the Su-85 and get behind it. Now, luckily for CcArts, the strafing run is for once not actually doing a whole lot, and I'm actually not sure if maybe this pack can't be suppressed, since it looks like that might actually be the case. And the strafing run, as ridiculous as it is on so many levels, actually does not do anything to vehicles. And wow, the pack just goes down right there. Again, that's something where it still had 4 members left, but I think it might have been the gun getting destroyed. And then the crew members kind of die along with it. Now this is not terrible positioning for Triumph, just because he can at least go around the corner and be in range of these units. Now he's not around the Su-85, although he might be. It's too risky, since that Su-85 will just back up and it can outrange it. And it's actually Triumph with the VP lead, although CcArts is now the one with the triple cap. Still plenty of time because he has such a big VP lead. Now, but one of the other interesting developments that could happen right here is Triumph getting out a second Tiger, since he's actually very, very close to it. Only has to wait for 5 more fuel. 6, actually. I was hoping that fuel point would tick up in just in time for me to say 5. But it's actually looking, well, yeah, so there's that second Tiger. So there are ways in which this is both looking very good for Triumph, mainly that he just got a second Tiger out, and also ways in which this is looking very good for CcArts, mainly the fact that he almost literally has the entire map. He has, yeah, I mean, Triumph right now only has 1 territory point. He's capturing 1 and decapping another. Let's take a look at CcArts' army. Oh, CcArts is now he's finally waiting for the resources to get that IS-2 out. Now, I don't necessarily know how well that's going to work out, but actually it seems like he's doing well to contain the Tiger with actually just with this Vet 3 Su-85. So the combination of the IS-2 and the Su-85 may actually be enough for CcArts to win this. And yep, here we go, that IS-2. You know what? I mean, there's been a lot of things said about the IS-2. Definitely people have been disappointed about it, and it's definitely got to be a little bit overpriced. An extra 50 fuel compared to the Tiger for something that is probably not necessarily better than the Tiger. Probably, if anything, worse. And this IS-2, I mean, I actually think the IS-2 is a very beautiful tank. And it's weird to say that about some big hulking piece of metal, but it's something just about the shape is actually quite a bit prettier than that Tiger, which really just looks like a big box. And that being said, I've heard that that in real life, the Tiger really was like an amazing tank. It was legendary for its speed, its power, and that it really was like one of the best tanks of the war. I think I also heard the Panther was one of the best tanks of the war. I don't know what the historic value or quality of the IS-2 was, but I kind of like it in game. At least I like the way it looks. I like the size of its cannon. These things have huge cannons. But this IS-2 definitely has to be careful about there being two Tigers. Now, one of the things I think he's going to try to do, he's actually going behind with his, or he's just coming from another direction with his Su-85. And if he can get some sight and just a few more munitions, he can scare off the Paks and the Pioneers with a incendiary barrage. Now he's got to worry about the Su-85. Now it's time for the IS-2 to chase a bit. IS-2 taking shots. This front Tiger, this front Vet 1 Tiger is a little bit pincered, but now the weaker Tiger is going for the Su-85 while, oh no, that's a Tiger down. So now, oh man, and CcArts is definitely in a big advantageous position right now. He has the resources, the munitions to do that incendiary barrage. He could do that right now on all of these Pioneers as well as this Pak, and then he could probably move right in with both his Su-85 and the IS-2. I think the only thing he's missing is the sight. I think he actually does not have fog of war here. Kind of. He kind of has the focus sight from the Su-85, I think. Yeah, the Su-85 has its focused vision. He may not have had that initially, but it looks like this Pak is going to be done. It's about to be... Oh, just instantly died from that KV-8. And this has to be a done Tiger. CcArts could even just follow this Tiger into base. He could follow the Tiger, take it out with his IS-2 and his Su-85, and then he could even just drop an incendiary barrage right on where these guys are retreating. So this really looks like the game now for CcArts. Really ridiculous game in so many ways. Looks like he's actually choosing not to press his luck because of the fact that this IS-2 now has a damaged engine. Must have gotten hit by a Panzerfaust. Well, I actually like this. I think he's using the focused vision on the Su-85 to sight for his Su-76 so it can use that barrage, so that he knows he's actually hitting something. Unfortunately, the Su-85 is in a little bit of trouble, a little bit path blocked by its Su-76 cousin. I think it will just about get out of there. But again, now CcArts is still sitting on a potential incendiary barrage that he could just use to scare all these things, all of the infantry off, and then leave this Tiger isolated. This Tiger is moving up into a fight that it's not going to win. It does not have enough health, gets a destroyed engine, is now pretty much dead in the water, and the VPs are ticking down in favor of CcArts. Tiger down. That has to be the end of the game. And the playback is in fact over.
So that was a crazy game in a lot of ways. There were some things where I almost felt like, what are they doing? But it still made for a very entertaining game. Hope you enjoyed the cast. Have a good night.